first lived in Latvia as a diplomat between 1996 and 1999, a few years after Latvia regained independence from the crumbling Soviet Union. I returned to live in Latvia in 2022. This podcast series is based on my observations and experience, with some history and comparisons with my home country of England on aspects of life in Latvia and things to see and experience. On Latgale. Latgale is one of the historical Latvian lands. It is Latvia's easternmost region and the country's poorest. While most of Latvia is Lutheran, Latgale is predominantly Roman Catholic, 65.3%, according to a 2011 survey. The region's history, as a territory fought over by Polish, Lithuanian, Russian and Livonians for centuries, helps to explain both the religious differences in Latgale. It also has sizable Russian Orthodox and Old Believer faiths, and until the Second World War had a substantial Jewish population, and its ethnic diversity. The region has a large population of ethnic Russians, a significant Polish minority, and a Belarusian minority. I describe Latgale as a region of contrasts, with some distinct cultural differences from the rest of Latvia. I will test this hypothesis on my two interviewees, Aldis Pušpurs, a former forestry manager who now has a guest house and a museum deep in eastern Latgale, and Guntars Skutels, the young Roman Catholic priest of the Neo-Gothic Church of the Sacred Heart of Jesus in Viļaka. But first, to help us understand this diverse region, a short history of Latgale. The Eastern Baltic Latgalian tribe originally populated the territory of what is now Latgale. Latgalians inhabited a large area, including Pskov in Russia and Vitebsk in Belarus. However, from the 13th century, the territory was fought over between Lithuanian dukes and the bishopric of Livonia. It was eventually annexed by the Grand Duchy of Lithuania and incorporated into the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Although most of the Duchy of Livonia was ceded to the Swedish Empire in 1621, Latgale remained under Polish-Lithuanian control. During this period, the Latgalian language was influenced by Polish and developed separately from the Latvian spoken in other parts of Latvia. In 1772, Latgale was annexed by the Russian Empire. Nearly 100 years later, as part of Russia's anti-Polish policies, a period of Russification began, during which the Latgalian language, written in Latin script, not Cyrillic script, was forbidden. This ban was only lifted in 1904. After the First World War, Soviet Russia wanted to regain Latvia, since it had once been part of the Russian Empire. The Red Army invaded Latvia in 1918, after the Latvian Prime Minister, Kārlis Ulmanis, declared independence. In January 1920, a joint force of Latvian and Polish armies defeated the Soviet army in the Battle of Daugavpils. After the signing of the Latvian-Soviet peace treaty, parts of the Vitebsk and Pskov regions were incorporated into the new Republic of Latvia, unifying ethnic Latvian territories under the Declaration of Independence. Although this ended the Latvian War of Independence, it was short-lived, as Latgale was occupied by the Soviet Union in 1940 and Nazi Germany in 1941. In 1944, the second occupation of Latvia by the Soviet Union began, which lasted until the dissolution of the Soviet Union and the restoration of Latvian independence in 1991. Latgale then regained its place as one of the cultural regions of the Republic of Latvia, without some of its former territory that Russia kept. The geography of Latgale will also help us understand the region. The land size of Latgale is 14,547 square kilometres, bigger than some European countries such as Cyprus and Luxembourg. Latgale is the easternmost region of Latvia. It is landlocked and has international borders with Russia and Belarus. The most populated cities in Latgale are Daugavpils, with 82,046 people, and Rezekne, with 31,216 people, which were heavily industrialised during the Soviet Union. I recall travelling to those cities in the 1990s while working as a British diplomat in Latvia. I was taken around desolate factories. Adidas had bought one and made training shoes and football boots with little health and safety for the workers. Another was producing tins of condensed milk. The market had evaporated, sorry for the pun, and everywhere in that factory had become a storage area for long-life tinned milk, including the toilets, as I found out. However, Latgale is known as the land of lakes, due to the large number of lakes in the region. The second biggest lake in Latvia is Lake Razna in Rezekne municipality, with an area of 58 square kilometres. The lakes are in peaceful, unspoilt countryside. I've been there. If you visit, take your time, as many are stone and dirt roads that you'll be travelling on. The region of Latgale historically has been a prolific producer of ceramic wares. Archaeologists have found that Latgalians have made pottery wares since early medieval times. Most Latgalian ceramic wares were used daily by local households for centuries, such as cooking pots and pots for honey, fruit preserves, sour cream and milk storage. In the 20th century, Latgalian ceramicists started to create decorative wares, such as candlesticks and decorative plates. They gained international prominence when two ceramicists' works were awarded a gold medal at the 1937 Paris exhibition. Although the early Soviet period was a difficult time for Latgalian ceramicists, after the 1950s, they became better known domestically and within other Soviet countries. In 1958, Andrejs Paulans and Polikarps Vilsans became the first Latgalian ceramicists to be recognized as the people's artists of the Latvian Soviet Socialist Republic. The Latgale Ceramic Studio in Rezekne was renamed the Andrejs Paulans Folk Applied Art Studio in 1986. One of the streets in the Latgalian town of Pirelli is named in honour of him. His former workshop and kiln are now in the Rainis Museum in Jasmuja, together with a unique tile stove made by the ceramicist Adams Kapelstinch. Ceramics remain one of the trademarks of Latgale. In 1920, the Bank of Latvia issued a commemorative Latgalian ceramics €2 coin with a candelabra. We will explore this more in the interview with Aldis. I wanted to know more about Latgale and Latgalians, so I spoke to Aldis Pušpurs. He has a lovely guest house where you can stay and an extensive collection of pieces about Latgalian life in his museum situated in a big wooden barn. Please can you describe for me a typical Latgalian?
Typical Latgalian is the same the Latvian, but who speaks Latgalian language or dialect. Latgalians, I think, have more ethnographic cultural singings because ethnographical tradition is developed in our days in Latgale region mostly than in other historical cultural regions in Latvia. Yes, language and culture.
Language, Latgalian language, I'm starting to see some signs in two languages, Latvian and Latgalian. Is Latgalian a dialect or is it a different language?
Officially, we have Latgalian dialect, but there are a lot of discussions. It is dialect or it is a language.
And is it hard for someone from Riga who speaks Latvian to understand the accent? Like in Britain, I know if I went to Glasgow in Scotland, I'd have to listen, even as an English-speaking person, listen quite carefully to what someone's saying. Words are different, it's got a strong accent. Is it similar? Is Latgalian language similar?
I think Latgalian language have a lot of Latgalian dialects. Mm-hmm. In Daugavpils, Latgalians speak differently than there in Palvi region. Mm-hmm. I have met Latvians who say, "Oh, I don't understand what he speak," but in mostly Latvians understand without problems.
To me, Latgale, and I'm sorry if this sounds a little simplistic, is a region of contrasts. This part of Latgale, where we are, I would describe it as very strongly Latvian, almost nationalistic. If I went down to Daugavpils or Rezekne, I would meet different people, and if I was listening on the street, I might say they seem to be speaking Russian more than that. And so I see this contrast. And when we were just talking before we started our discussion, we were talking about the Polish community in Latgale, which was quite new to me to know that they were still, I knew there had been a Polish community here from history, but that they still keep the language alive in church services, keep the language alive in the schools. I think you're saying in Rezekne and Ludza. Tell me more about these different contrasts, the different ethnic groups that make up Latgale.
We have a lot of native Russians, native Polish and native different nationalities. These are more patriotic to Latvia. But those who comes in Soviet times from Russia regions to Latvia and Latgale, those are different people.
And that's the big cities. And again, it was migration to work in the factories in those big cities. Latgale as well, for me, has a great tradition in ceramics, making of plates and objects in ceramics. Is that correct? Am I correct in that?
Yes, it is correct. And this tradition started because Latgale region was not the richest but different, was poorest region in Latvia. We have a lot of clay and people make ceramic things for everyday use and ceramics in Latgale was developed more than in other Latvian regions. In Latgale, ceramics is Still nowadays, the Lovak mostly popular than in other regions.
And it's an artistic form as well.
Because we have poorest soils, but no, people looks for occupation. What can I do? Ceramics was developed in Latgale. We have also one of agricultural branches, not crops but linen. Linen growing was very, very, very developed in Latgale region. It grows in our poor soil.
I'd like to ask your advice as a Latgalian on some tips, some places one should see. People coming to Latgale, what sort of things should they see, to experience, to understand this region?
You must visit a lot of guest houses for Latgalian traditional food, for Latgalian traditional drink. You must see Latgalian churches, Aglona, Līksna, Krāslava, landscapes, lakes, forests. This direction in Aglona, Krāslava, Daugavpils, Preļi, there is a lot of very beautiful lakes.
You have a guest house here and the museum. We've stayed there. If people are interested in staying at your guest house or coming to see your museum, how can they find out about it? What would be the best way?
Write in Google, guest house or Egļavas mežniecības muzejs.
Thank you very much. Next, I travelled to Viljaka to meet Father Guntars Skutels. We have known Guntars for a few years. He officiated at the marriage of my wife's eldest son to a Latgalian. A few weeks ago, he christened their son. Viljaka is a pretty small town with a Catholic church on one hill, a Lutheran church looking at it from another hill, and a ruined castle on an island in a lake. It is a mere 7 kilometres from the border with Russia, but it is very Latgalian. While most of Latvia is historically Lutheran, Latgale is predominantly Roman Catholic. I think I read 65% according to a 2011 survey. I'm sure history is part of that, but there must be other reasons as well. Why is Roman Catholicism so strong in Latgale?
It's historic reasons, because Latgale was under Polish government, and of course Viljaka was a little bit too, and some persons remember church builders who was Polish barons, yes, and some person remember from grandfathers, priest will be these persons who is a local person.
And we're in, if I can call it, your church, as you're the priest here, in Viljaka, which is a beautiful, beautiful church.
Very beautiful.
And the local people, your community here, are going to be Latgalians. How would you describe your community? You just talked now about knowing their language. Can you speak Latgalian? Do you, in your services, do you use Latgalian language or pure Latvian? What about Polish as well? You were talking only about Polish.
Yes. My Polish not very strong, but I understand. No, in Viljaka, actually, it was big surprise for me because I'm not come from Viljaka. My origin is Preļi. It's 2 hours from Viljaka. It's a little bit different region, Preļi, like Viljaka. And when I come to Viljaka, it was big surprise for me that persons are very Latgalian persons. They have this patriotism of Latgalia, of Latgalian language, and Latgalian language is different. And some persons in the first minutes told me, "Hey, you are not local man. Yes, your language is different a little bit." Yes. I have some anecdotes or some jokes, because one word in my Latgalian doesn't mean other this object, yes, like in Preili, home is sāta. In Viļaka, sāta is fence. Something calling me say, I have some problems with my animals, that these animals broken my sāta. Oh my God, in home some animals, what happening? I think it's home, but it's normally
fence.
Yeah, fence, yes, but because this home animals goes and broke this fence, not home. I say, no, Guntar, it's all right, happening. How, what you animals doing in your home? No, it's not home, it's fence. Oh, sorry, dvorce sāta. I was very surprised that persons using Latgalian very strong. No, here is near Russian border, but in 7 years, when I living here in Viļaka, only one time I need to Russian language in church for understand persons or speaking language. Polish never.
Though other parts of Latgale, because it's such a diverse region, other parts like Rezekne, they're all still, I'm told there is still a Polish community. I'm told that in the churches there may be one service in Polish on a Sunday.
We have some churches near to Rezekne or Daugavpils, where we have 3 language Holy Mass in Latvian, and some prayers in Polish, homily or this your speak in Russian. Polish men or people want to pray in Polish, but they don't understand very good Polish. And they ask sometimes, we need to Russian language, but we are living in Latvia, we need to use Latvian language. There was very strong folk tradition in church too, because when we have some big celebrations like 15 August in Viļaka too, like in Aglona, we have this pilgrim procession around the church, and some people go in local dress. It's not typical in other churches.
Please tell me more about this church. It is so close, of course, to the border with Russia, and there was 2 wars that this church has been through, if you count more wars as well, the different things that happened. Tell me more about the history of this church, please.
First we need to understand the history of Viļaka, because Viļaka name before Viļaka was Marienhausen, home of Maria. And in this year we have this celebration. 730 years old is this city. It's not very young city. And of course there was first church. Little church, make it from Riga, one bishop, Johann de Fechte, who want to little bit make some place for Catholic, because from Russian comes here Slav. Orthodox. And of course, after some years, church was in the center of the Viļaka in Marienhaus, and finally, this is a fourth church in Viļaka, bigger than other, 132 years old only, but 5 years necessary for this church, for building. And this architect was from Riga, Florian Wiganowski, Polish. And of course, Alina Lipska-Lipke was baron of this region. It's neo-Gothic style. These colored windows, it's fantastic.
Stained glass windows are magnificent.
Yes. And second very important thing, not typical in Latvia now, of course, material is local. All material is local. Of course, windows maybe no, or organ come from Poland. But actually it's very good material, because we have 2 wars. And this church was a little bit damaged in the second war, but now it's all right. And this church was built for 20,000 people, big parish local church.
Yes.
20,000. Now we have only 2,000
Yes.
believers. But it's not only demographic situation in Latvia. So we have other church near Škilbani or Kuprava or Liepna, of course, who take little bit persons, yes, believers. This was local government place center. Now we have a center in Balvi. Some years ago, 130 years ago, this was center region, calling Abrenes Apriņķis. Border not was only 6-7 kilometers near. Yes, was 37 kilometers near. In church system, we are bigger than Balvi church. Yes. So this is center of 10 churches.
I also wanted to ask you about the Basilica of Assumption of Aglona, which I visited in the 1990s, a long time ago. And I think I know that you went there very recently for the pilgrimage.
Yeah.
Tell me more. I know it's quite a way. It's the other side of Latgale, but still in Latgale.
Yes.
Please tell me more about this shrine and why it's so important for Catholics.
And this is a place where come very much persons, yes. And also in Catholic Church, every country have some place. And in Latvia, we calling this place. It's Baroque, little bit different like Viljaka, but Viljaka, this church is little Aglona. We calling little Aglona because in Latgale, all priests need to go to Aglona for these big celebrations, 15 August. From Viljaka and from Varakļāni, you cannot go because you have very much persons in your local church. We every year we have 4, 5, 6 hundreds persons who come in this day to stay in church.
And popes.
Yes, Pope
as well to Aglona.
John Paul II and of course Francis too.
Yes.
When I start studying in seminary, actually, I asked, where is my vocation? Why I want to be priest? And after some meditations, I see, yes, I remember. When I was child, I was in Aglona, and now I'm this Mother of God. Yeah. And I know very much stories in Aglona when persons comes. And something happening, some mystical things happening.
Thank you very much. After the interview, Guntars insisted on taking us up into the church tower to see the bell and the view. Little did we know that this would involve going up many open wooden stairs. It's not suitable if you dislike heights, that's me. He rang the church bell as a demonstration. When we left the church, the police were outside. I think they may have been concerned about the church bell ringing. We sheepishly drove away. In conclusion, Latgale's history has sometimes developed alongside the rest of Latvia with a distinct language and culture. Latgale has more Polish and Russian influence, whereas the rest of Latvia had more Germanic influence. It may be a poorer, landlocked part of present-day Latvia, but it has much to offer the visitor, especially in ecotourism. Beautiful landscapes, wonderful lakes, pretty villages and church, and above all, super friendly Latgalians.